fellow tankers, we will forego the usual tanking prayer because this whole video is about how wargaming giveth and wargaming taketh away, with a huge emphasis on giveth. Because in this new season, well, Cold War Western Alliance tanks got buffs. And I'm going to be focusing on two vehicles that are important to me. Firstly, is one of probably the first Era 3 premium season tanks, the Cat B Thumper. Now, this tank, pretty much from the very second it was put into Era 3, it was held, it felt wrong. Firstly, it was a tank destroyer. Secondly, it didn't come with the gun stabilizer. You could get the advanced laying drive to help aim in time, but you couldn't get a gun stabilizer. I realize that the World of Tanks, Modern Armor, were kind of basing this on the outdated mentality that is, well, this was the first time they were bringing in a high caliber premium. This was a 140mm Buffmas, the first one in Era 3, and it was a premium, so for once they tried to balance it. The problem was that Era 3 is a very different beast. So what they were trying to do with this tank actually was kind of handicapping it, because even at this time the wolf pack method was prevalent in Era 3. So you have the problem with having a inaccurate boom snout on the move is you don't hit the target, and then you have a long aim-in time, which means you're sitting there and suddenly you're surrounded, you're flanked, and it was one of those things of like this. You could understand why they did it, but it wasn't appropriate for Era 3 because the Thumper is based on some of the early experiments, America's MBT experimentation leading up to the Abrams, and you definitely get a feel for what will become the Abrams with this tank. It's mobile, it's heavy, it hits hard when it rams you. So, but from its inception, the Thumper was handicapped. It was functional. It wasn't like, oh, this sucks. It was functional, but it kind of was being held back. And you can see I'm just twirling my turret around, moving around, just looking at how accurate this is. I probably should have ran this without stabilizers, but this video is going to have a little less editing because I wanted to get quick matches in featuring the key components to these two tanks. The Thumper also was changed to a heavy. So it went from being a tank destroyer, which it shouldn't have been, because it was never intended that way, especially when this was being established in the 1970s. Yes, ATGMs were what were tank destroyers. Okay. Yes, Era 3 also has the only other. It has the Type 89, and that is a lovely tank destroyer, but it's power creep affects certain tanks more than it does others. But that'll be for a future buff video. Getting a heavy designation, there was a few minor buffs to rotation, turret speed, and stuff. Although it did lose some of the camo abilities that came with being a tank destroyer, but realistically, no one ever really played the Thumper like a tank destroyer. just because of how Era 3 is with these larger MBT style tanks. So, yes, it's accurate. It aims in quickly. It is. This now feels like every other MBT almost. Yeah. So, I'm glad to see the Thumper's finally in its place, acting as it should be, instead of being one of those things like wargaming. I think you're trying to make this into something it's not, and it was definitely part of a period where the player base could see that Era 3 was not going to what the typical formula for World of Tanks was, and the developers were sort of I don't know if they were ignorant to it or slow to realize that, or just at this point with how they are with their roadmaps, they never show us, or how they plan things out. It's like, yeah, they can't do anything about it right now just because we plan ahead, so we can't do anything today type thing. I don't know. But the Thumpers finally feels like it's part of the pack is really what I'm just trying to say about that. And I'm glad it was needed. And the next tank, as you can tell from the is the M3A2 Bradley. So both of these vehicles, firstly, let me just say, functional. They were functional. You could use them. But they didn't quite feel like they were up to par. And the Bradley is an OG Cold War tank. There was the American heavies, then there was the Eastern Alliance heavies, the T-72 line, you had the M60s and then Abrams, then the lights came in. And power creep, again, kind of showed how many shortcomings of Bradley, and mostly concerning the autocannon, which even compared to the BMP-3's 30mm autocannon was the rate of fire. It was appallingly slow for something that was a technically, supposed to have a high rate of fire. That I would regularly, especially once the Martyr came out, the Stormer. Well, I'll get to the Stormer. That really kind of caused a little bit of an uproar. But the Bushmaster on the Bradley had a low rate of fire, yet also, maybe because I don't have all the ammo, or the, not ammo, aiming perks in it, was also kind of inaccurate, which is sort of counterintuitive to, if you have a slow rate of fire, you have accuracy. If you have a slow rate of fire and mediocre accuracy, you're not as functional at those medium range to long range encounters than some of the other light tanks or with autocannons are. Now, do you want to be trying to snipe with any autocannon? No. But again, in Era 3 specifically, light tanks do not want to be up close and personal with any of the MBTs. And the Bradley is a large, slow, light tank. It's a fighting vehicle. It's a troop transport. It does have some turret armor to help that, but it was really dependent on the ATGMs. Thankfully, you have a dual launcher, which can be used quite nice. But it's those in-between ATGMs, or when that's reloading, where the autocannon would be used, especially for tracking. The problem is, I was finding myself so often, especially if I was kind of side by side with a Martyr, or any other autocannon, it would be, here's how it go. 1 round, 2 round, 3 round, 4 round, 5 round. I could get, well, actually, that was a little fast. I would sometimes find myself firing before or after Martyr, getting to the 3rd or 4th round. They've emptied their clip, and they've also secured the kill, or done the most damage. Meanwhile, I fired 3 to 5 rounds, and not all of them penetrated, some bounced. So it was extremely frustrating to use the Bushmaster. When the British Stormer premium came along with another type of Bushmaster with a higher rate of fire, I was like, is this, you gonna buff the Bradley? Then the M3A1 came into Era 2. Again, the Bradley's earlier version, Bushmaster, better rate of fire. So it kind of was like, yeah, did we, was there no, it was one of those things like, alright, this wasn't future proof. Power creep suddenly is here, and now you, yeah, it was kind of miserable. I know the Bradley has fans, I do. The dual ATGM launcher is sweet, but it's this. Having this kind of rate of fire so you can track tank MBTs in place quickly and still be able to go on and do extra damage is great. Because with that slower rate of fire, MBTs would come straight at you, just charging down on you. And I would sometimes find myself not capable of tracking them because I'm not getting enough rounds into the tracks to actually damage them, whittle away their health points, and break them, so it would stop the MBT. And so either I got smashed into by the MBT, or I would get lucky, I would track the MBT, but it's so close, they have me at point blank range, and again, large vehicle, slow, this is a bus. It was like, and then of course, then we instituted the ATGM arming distance. I would be lucky if I could do the 300 damage if I penetrated with the ATGM. It was just, yeah. Previously, the M3A2 Bradley could be in many Era 3 type situations not in the favorable position. So from a distance with the ATGMs, yes, but anytime you had to turn to that auto cannon, it was kind of like, well, I might get some damage, but if I have to compete with any other tank for damage, yeah, I'm not gonna get it. I will be, the damage per seconds was too low, so tanks with good DPM, I know we're throwing out the alphabet soup here, could actually kind of come out on top. So yes, these are good buffs. These two tanks were in my mind some of the ones that needed the buffs the most. Oh, there was some like 54 Western Alliance tanks that got buffed. One got nerfed, the BeigletzPanzer. I need to play it more. I did a quick match in it, and I was like, ah yes, you nerfed it. I actually did a couple matches. Ah yes, you nerfed it. And actually, weirdly enough, I one marked it in a match. I think the game may have been glitching with new updates because I did 436 damage, and I one marked it. Yeah, I don't know. I might put a very bad video up because I have some footage of that, but not all of it in that match's entirety. But if you're interested, like, subscribe, comment down below for bad matches, and are you happy for these buffs? Yes, these Cold War buffs were necessary. Some tanks really came out on top, are actually fun to play, and it truly was. Christmas came early, and thank you, Wargaming. For the rest of you, I'll give you tracks on the ground, RNGs in your favor, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.